keep going.
Yeah.
One of the things they ruined was like a lot of good stories. Like, have you ever read the Hero with a Thousand Faces or The Writer's Journey or any of those like books that kind of outline storytelling? Oh, you should, dude. I'll let you borrow it. It's one of the most interesting books I've read.
You have the physical book?
Yeah. I got the physical. It's fat. It's called The Writer's Journey, so it kind of like it modernizes The Hero with a Thousand Faces.
Yeah.
From Joseph Campbell. But have you heard of that at all?
So they reference it in the screenwriting class that I took a lot. But I didn't read it.
The basic premise is that like every story is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It varies, and there are like ways to vary it. But they go into like what good storytelling is, and one of it is what audiences really like, and psychologically we really like this is symmetry. Just generally as a species, we enjoy symmetry. That's why good-looking people have symmetry. But we also like that in storytelling. So like there's a lot of good stories that end and begin the same way. So like for example, like Harry Potter. Right, they kind of the beginning of the story is them going into the school, and the end is the epilogue where their kids are going to school. And like the music comes back, so like brings you back to the beginning. Like a lot of good storytelling does that. Game of Thrones started with the White Walkers, so you're like, okay, this makes sense. It's going to begin and end with the White Walkers. They just throw it in the middle of the 8th season, and then like, oh, but that's not the real stakes. It's like, what are you talking about? That was the whole show.
Yeah,
they just didn't know when to break rules and when not to.
Yeah,
and George R. Martin kind of knew when to break rules and when not to. They just didn't get that.
When they when they removed the threat of the White Walkers in the end, it invalidates the threat for the entire season. You're like, like none of it there was no high stakes at the end of the day.
No.
So annoying.
Nope. It should have ended with them ultimately killing Cersei or somehow, and then the final battle was them saving their lives, and it ended with that. Like, that's
agreed.
That's what, or like it could have been Dany becoming evil, and then like maybe she leaves.
I would have been bought in
at the end and kill, like
if they developed that a little bit more, like if they kind of saw her kind of like fall into evilness, then I would have believed it.
Yeah,
it was done so poorly, but what's up?
All right, we're back. Sorry, we're ranting on Game of Thrones, which all of you, I'm sure, have done.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Which, I mean, everyone agrees. It's unanimous. It was a terrible ending.
It was bad. The reason why we brought it up, by the way, audience, was because Peter Dinklage has he's been talking a lot about Game of Thrones over the last few weeks. And he just the comments he's made has been basically the fans are wrong. And if they're right, then it's basically the fans don't matter because Game of Thrones was always going to be controversial. Like the ending was never going to satisfy everybody, and that's just silly. That's just dumb. Like the beginning satisfied everybody. Like nobody was like, "How dare they kill Ned Stark? I hate this show." Everybody loved that. There were things you can do that make everybody love it. He basically was like, "There's just no way to end it." With most people liking it, it's that's.
I still
stupid.
think my theory is that they knew it was going to be ended poorly, and they went ahead with it because at some point there's going to be a chance to redo it in like some sort of like a movie or a reboot, and they're like, you know what,
maybe
fuck it, let's just let D&D go on to their next project, and then we'll redo it at some point and make more money off that IP.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty sad with D&D. I feel like they had so much passion for the show, and then once they had to start writing it themselves, it just became too much, and they were like, we gotta get the fuck out of here.
That's like midlife crisis kind of thing where you're like,
I think that's what happens.
You're like, oh, I really love it, but once it becomes work, I'm like, do I really want to do it if I have to work?
Yeah.
It feels like work now.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things is a problem is what confuses everybody is that like a lot of the ending isn't bad. Like there are things that George R. R. Martin said, like this is how some of these characters' stories are going to end.
Yeah.
But the problem is the ending only makes sense if you get there in a good way.
Right.
Like it doesn't feel deserved. So like for instance, like Daenerys' turn, that could have been great. Like that could have made sense. The problem is she turned from good for like 7.5 seasons to bad in the course of, you maybe saw that progression to like, her downfall in like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
You're like, she's been such a good person who's saved all of these lives for like 7 seasons.
Yeah.
But then 2 episodes, she becomes evil.
Yeah, when the audience can feel that they've been like cheated, like they can tell,
it's just not deserved.
Yeah.
You didn't deserve it. I didn't feel that natural progression.
Yeah, it's kind of an insult to the audience. You know?
It completely is.
Yeah.
Hollywood's done a lot of that actually, where they've kind of said like, well, fans don't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
and it's like
it's part of the snooty nature.
Huh?
Yeah, it's part of the up-nose snooty nature of Hollywood.
Like I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
fans can be complicated. Obviously, like Star Wars, for instance.
Yeah.
But
speaking of the rules of Hollywood, so you forwarded me that article. I skimmed it, admittedly, but
it's long.
Give me the TLDR.
So this is from Barry Weiss, who's an independent journalist. I think she used to work for like the New York Times, and then with all big media these days, there's just stories you can't pursue because of conflicting interests, whether that's with your partners in like the major studios, or if it's like regular news, like if you're Fox News, you can't really shit too much on the Republican Party, or if you're on CNN, you can't really shit too much on the Democratic Party. So she wanted to kind of break traditional media and just do whatever. And so she covered something that most people in Hollywood, especially like the trades, right, like Variety,
they won't even touch.
Won't really touch.
Yeah.
And it's basically the idea that Hollywood is doing things that aren't necessarily making it a meritocracy anymore. And so what I mean by that is like basically they're hiring people for reasons other than that they're good storytellers, or that they've written something well, right? They're hiring people to satisfy quotas. There's, for the Oscars, like the Oscars have a bunch of rules now on like people on like in the backstage have to do,
they're making choices on
genetic makeup.
So they're making choices on quotas, not on qualifications, and like they're just checking boxes.
They're basically checking boxes, and so it gets into a lot of it in terms of one of the funny things they mentioned was that if you look at the Academy Museum, they talk about like all these people who have successfully been in Hollywood, a lot of diversity that's been represented there. But they forget that Hollywood was basically founded by Jews running away from the Holocaust. They just ignore that because they're like, oh, well, they're all white. It's like, okay, cool. So I guess the Jews don't count as usual, which is really funny. But just some interesting quotes here. Like they talk about like a lot. They quote a lot of people in the industry that won't talk because they can't. Like if you said anything that's not like, let's say they said, oh well, they only hired that writer because it was a woman. They're fired. They're ruined from Hollywood. Like they won't get a job because there's no reason to deal with people who have this kind of, I don't know, like it's a risk working with them. But there was another one that talked about James Franco trying to come back, and it's like,
oh yeah,
can James Franco come back from this? Who does anybody want to, right? Like Mel Gibson works, even though he's pretty much said he hates Jews, and everyone's like, yeah, that's fine though, he works.
I think there's like a tiering for that in the sense that if you're of a specific caliber, where you do something like that, then you can get completely nixed, and it's totally like nobody's gonna bat an eye. You can get canceled easily. But there's a group that's like really, really above, like the Martin Scorsese, the Mel Gibson. They can do whatever, and then everyone will.
They kind of just ignore it.
Yeah, they can just ignore it because they're so good.
Which is honestly why Harvey Weinstein got away with it for a long time,
right?
Because he basically owned Hollywood for a lot. Like he was a huge player in Hollywood. And if you talk back to him, so it's like kind of the opposite. Like they're almost going too much into the reverse, where it was before Harvey Weinstein controlled everything and you couldn't say anything. Now it's, kind of the woke ideology is controlling Hollywood and you can't say anything.
Yeah.
Which look, I mean, obviously there's a lot of good things that come out of like wokeism, but when when
you say wokeism, that's like inherently a little bit derogatory. Right? What you mean is I guess embracing ideals that are progressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
is generally a good thing.
Yes.
Right.
Like making obviously encouraging people like production assistants should be more diverse. And that's totally true because production assistants are generally unqualified people for everything. They're like 20-year-olds who happen to have like their mom was like a senior producer for Terminator or something. And that's how they get the job. Like Hollywood's always kind of been like that. So they've always had a diversity problem because in order to get into Hollywood, you need to risk being like literally not making money for a long period of time.
Right.
And because white people generally had more generational wealth, they could do that.
Yeah, they could stick it out.
And minorities couldn't.
Yeah.
So it was always kind of like that, and it should be changing. But this article kind of gets into it where, like, There are a lot of white writers that won't get hired now that used to write great stuff, but they're white writers. And they're like, well, we don't need more
I was talking to
a
casting director recently who mentioned something similar. Like, nobody is hiring, like, 20, 30-something white male. Like, that's, like, the least desirable
there's no benefit to it.
Yeah.
Other than, like, obviously, if they're good, like, that could help.
And the only reason why I know is because, like, are there any roles for, like, Asian
Dude, take advantage
Asian
of it.
20s that are athletically fit? And they're like, yeah, that shit is hot right now. Did you watch Shang-Chi?
Yeah, dude. I mean, take advantage of it, honestly, if you can. It's been very interesting to see kind of the opposite of what, of kind of the opposite of what the mainstream narrative has been. Yeah. But I think the big point of the article is obviously you have all this happening, but the problem is it's creating, I think, a disconnect between audiences and Hollywood. Like a lot of, I mean, it's a class thing kind of to a certain extent where like a lot of people in Hollywood are just out of touch with what Americans really want or like.
Yeah.
Right within television. Like, what's the most popular television show? Like on TV today, a lot of people in Hollywood would probably say like Succession, right? Or like Euphoria, maybe.
Yeah.
Everybody else in the United States would be like Yellowstone, and you can see it in the ratings.
Right.
Like the finale of Yellowstone was like 15, 16 million views, and Succession was like 1.5. But everybody in Hollywood would be like, well, Succession's a better show, though. It's like, well, it doesn't really matter.
It's been a thing though where they like to pat themselves on the back. But I feel like that's not new though, to some extent. But I think also we've seen that trend towards wokeism already in the different places. It just hasn't been so explicitly stated.
They said it started from the 2015, like the Me Too stuff. Once the Me Too stuff started coming out, then it was like Hollywood needs to like a total restructure. I
honestly,
which it did.
Yeah.
Which it did need a restructure.
I started noticing it when all the Rotten Tomatoes and the audience scores are completely opposite,
completely diverging.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Oh
the hell is going on here?
Yeah,
like I can't even trust this shit anymore.
Yeah, dude, it's a strange conundrum that Hollywood is in, where like they rely too much on data, which means they're like, okay, what franchises that existed in like the 70s could we bring back? But oh no, they were all white people, because that's just like what Hollywood was back then. So we need to
spice it up
with like, let's make it an all-female cast, or let's like do this. And the problem is that makes it by nature unauthentic to the sequel, to the franchise, which, I don't know what's the best. What's the best franchise that's been rebooted like that?
If you reboot something by just changing characteristics, that's like the laziest way to continue a story or continue a franchise, right? You have to do something fresh and new. You can't just change the superficial gloss of it and call it something new. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, think of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Put in Rey.
Yeah. Put in. Oh my god. The exact same story arc.
Pretty much the exact same story arc as Luke, except for Luke had flaws. She had no flaws.
Yeah. No, she's perfect.
Because she's a woman. That's impossible for them to have flaws.
In that movie.
Yeah, but they I've noticed that Hollywood is really hesitant to give women characters like complex like flaws in themselves.
Yeah,
a lot of the time, which makes them unrelatable, which makes them bad.
Yeah,
it's actually bad for female characters when you can't give them flaws or them being imperfect people, when they're always these like perfect characters that just like kick ass and like are totally empathetic and just like the perfect human beings all the time.
I always like use Ripley from Alien as like an example of like a strong female lead that didn't like you didn't. She was flawed, right? But she was a good lead that you didn't feel like she was just put there because she was female, or it lent to the story why she was good.
100%.
And I feel like I haven't seen any movies recently that captured that same kind of feeling,
Arcane, I think, did it great.
Oh, that's true. I think
Arcane did it great.
Yeah, you're right.
So there are shows sometimes, but you're right. Most movies, no. I think honestly, the people writing television right now, well, I guess the few. I mean, I think a lot of the people who are very good storytellers are going to television. So I think it's actually somehow a more attractive medium than
it's
theatrical movies.
It's a
now.
much more series focused market now.
Yeah, you have more time to develop characters.
Yeah.
You can introduce more
Yeah,
characters.
well-
Stories can be more nuanced because you're not limited by time.
Yeah. Ultimately, there's more buyers for series these days.
That too.
So
Yep.
that drives everything.
Yeah, so I think like the people left writing movies are kind of shit, which is really sad because, I mean, I don't know, like that's the theatrical business overall. It's just gonna like tank. They can't give good movies.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Let's move on to the next topic here. So this is fresh off the press, but so Roku grew. Basically, as everyone knew, makes the most money from its platform business, right? So this is their software, OS, streaming services, all that. The guy who was head of it, the VP, Scott Rosenberg, who's one of the smartest guys I've ever interacted with ever. Like when I was like when I was on a Zoom meeting with him, you could just feel the intelligence coming from this guy. Like you could tell it was going to happen 3 to 5 years ahead. He's been with the company 9 years and he's leaving, so that's going to leave a huge kind of like I don't want to say vacuum, but it's like who's going to fill that spot? Like he basically built the entire platform business, right? And he's kind of off to his next venture.
And now specify. So so it's basically it's software and hardware basically. It's like the two business lines. So he's pretty much all software.
All software.
So everything you see on your TV.
All the OS stuff, all the like subscription stuff, all the free content, all that was him.
Damn.
Which is huge, which is like the biggest revenue driver. But
I mean,
that business has matured. So he's like, you know what? I've done what I came here to do.
Hasn't the TV market matured kind of too? So does that mean their whole business has matured?
I think like the software platform, like the SVOD, AVOD, it's in a place now where everyone's focused on growth, not just setting it up. So I think he is looking at it like, I mean, Anthony Wood, the CEO, he's not going to retire anytime soon. So where else is he going to go?
Right? He wants to kind of create more stuff.
Yeah,
and he's like, I've already created.
I feel like executives at that level are really looking to like build stuff or like you know have like drive the the overall direction of the company. And if he's reached that point where he's already done, like where else can he go?
Yeah, just supporting the growth of something he already created.
I have a suspicion that who they might find to replace him, I think it might be like Jason Kyler or someone like that.
That would be huge.
Yeah, because I mean he's on his way out. Right, and he's a very like tech focused platform guy, right? Numbers driven tech media guy.
That's interesting.
He would fit that ticket, right?
That would be Kyler would be very interesting actually.
Yeah,
that would be huge for Roku. I have some Roku stock, so that'd be great if you guys got them.
Yeah, I mean.
That would be big. Honestly, people give Kyler... I gave Kyler a lot of shit when he made that decision for day and date.
Well, he went on a victory lap recently, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I was right, I mean,
we're
the third best streaming company right now. Like,
yeah, and they killed it. They beat their expectations. And frankly, I have definitely used HBO Max more than I have
100%.
Like, their content has just been better.
We shit on their UI a lot, but the
UI
content is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's undeniable. Yeah.
No, I think there was when HBO Max first came out, I think a lot of people were like, is the brand confusion? It was like, are they going to be able to maintain like the HBO brand when they have like the Looney Tunes in there? But they kind of have.
Yeah.
Like honestly, they have a lot of stuff. And they're creating good stuff, and they have an underrated library. Like any movie, like old movie that I want to see, it's almost always on HBO Max.
If you go there, they have like
they have all the Matrix movies. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they have curated zones on HBO Max, which I think is like a pretty cool thing. Like they have like Turner Classics, where you see like a bunch of like classic movies and libraries and whatnot. So they still have humans curating these things,
which is smart. Like that's what we want.
Like their programming team is like I heard it was like like 20 full-time people manually doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's
whereas
cool.
like in other companies like Roku or the more automated ones, you have like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they have actual humans doing it. So
it
makes you appreciate it a little bit more.
Definitely, dude.
But speaking of like Warner, I think what I'm annoyed at now is just them resuscitating franchises in a really shitty way.
Oh yeah, but that's kind of
so.
I don't know if that's Warner though. I think that's like everybody.
I mean,
Paramount's doing it too.
What I'm getting annoyed by though is that they keep making they keep making meta references to themselves doing that.
All right, so we should start with the Matrix.
Okay, so I knew
know
we were
you're
getting
getting
there.
at.
Yeah,
I know you're
I was like
getting
trying
at.
to set up a segue. But
Well, I mean, you could set it up if you want to set it up.
did you watch the new Space Jam movie?
I mean,
Did you finish it?
I don't think I did actually. I think during the basketball game, like I don't really care.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the outcome.
I couldn't finish it, but like what I thought was interesting, what they did was like they're talking about how like Warner Brothers like needed this, and like they're really good at referencing themselves as saying like we need to reboot a franchise, and they do the exact same thing in The Matrix. And like you know how like when you're in that group of friends where someone says a good joke and someone else follows up that joke and everyone's laughing, and then like the same person says the same thing again, and everyone's like, kind of like lost its
It's like, yeah, we got it.
We got it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what it is right now, and I'm like so frustrated because they're bringing back IP that shouldn't be brought back unless you know for a fact that it's absolutely needed.
Right. Well, there's an actual story. Like I wish it was I feel like the way that some of these come about is there's, a CEO or a top executives that's like, I'm a freaking genius. Why don't we reboot the Goonies? Nobody's thought of that. Like, I'm a genius.
Yeah.
Versus it's not like
Gen Z is going to love the Goonies.
Yeah, like they've never experienced it. Like I think it's executives thinking that they're more creative than they actually are, and they think these are good at let's do Matrix 4, and then they reach out to the Wachowski sisters.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, they're sisters now. It wasn't the Wachowskis coming to Warner and saying, hey, we want to make this. We think there's a continuation to the story. It's Warner's going to them and be like, can you make something up? We just want to make money.
I mean, it also speaks volumes that only one of them ended up doing.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Right?
I wonder if that was personal reasons, like maybe the other one didn't want to make a movie, or
so
they were actually like.
The weird thing is there's so much spliced in footage from the first 3 movies.
Oh, really?
That no matter what, the other Wachowski is definitely going to get credits from this movie, even though
there's that much
involved.
like overlap from like the other movies.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason why I bring it up is because they do all that, and like, okay, so live right here, tell me what you think was going to happen in Matrix 4, because you haven't seen it yet, right?
No, I haven't seen it.
All right, so what's your prediction? and then I'll give a spoiler alert, and then I'll actually tell you, since I feel like you're not.
I'm probably not going to watch it because I've
heard too much.
I've heard too much, and it's almost exclusively been bad.
Okay.
So
this is fun. So like, tell me what you actually think is going to happen.
I mean, so at the end of the 3rd movie, The Matrix is rebooted entirely. Yeah. I don't know why he's old. Because I feel like he died, so I don't know if he would have been created. But it's either the same Neo and he somehow didn't die in the 3rd one, which wouldn't make any sense, or it's the Neo that was recreated with the new Matrix. But then it's either that he becomes the one. I couldn't predict the main storyline, but one of the things that they do a lot of times in these remakes is they fucking take the main character that you liked and they just cuck him. They basically just like,
they cuck him.
Nah, he wasn't like actually that cool. But the female lead that he was in romantic intentions with, she's actually the main character and she's the badass. Fuck him, and she's gonna take control. Kind of like there are a couple different movies that did that. But I've seen that a lot where they're like, your original hero. They did this with Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker was just a pussy.
He's supposed to be the one. Right.
Right. Luke Skywalker
bring balance to the Force, and he's not.
And no, it's Rey. And but not only that, it's that Luke Skywalker also sucks. Like he's just not. He didn't learn. It's basically he didn't learn anything from those 3 movies.
The scientific term for that is retconning, right? That's what that term is.
Yeah.
So
right,
you're pretty fucking close.
Yeah.
Which is infuriating, right?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening? Okay, like official spoiler alert now. So if you haven't seen Matrix 4, turn it off. And you plan to turn it off. So what ends up happening is it is Neo, but he's older, and so he does die in the 3rd one. But then when they reboot,
the reborn. This is the reboot.
They reboot.
Yeah, okay.
But they don't use the architect to redesign the Matrix. They use like a new, like robot AI. It's called the Analyst.
They don't explain why. Because maybe the mess up from the other one.
I guess they realize that there's the chance that they'll just create another Agent Smith, that would just infect the system. So they reboot it, but they realize that Neo and Trinity being in proximity together causes despair. That's enough energy that they could harvest. So they need them alive because they can generate more energy. But they can't have them technically together. So they reprogram the Matrix to basically keep them within arm's length so that they're always thinking about each other, but they can never like fully be together because she's like married and he's like, dude. Okay.
So are these the Trinity? Is this the Trinity and Neo? Like, so they didn't die. Or they did die,
and
they just
were
been
resurrected.
rebooted.
Yeah, they were resurrected
Then
specifically
how do they know
for
about
this
each
purpose.
other?
Because they have like memories of each other, but they're purposefully fed blue pills so that they don't know about the truth. And here's the kicker: there's not one. There's 2 ones, and it's a system.
It's Trinity. It's like them together is the one now.
Yeah, and basically at the end they fly off together because she
flies.
She
now?
flies too. Yeah, she does
This.
Matrix shit too.
So she can do everything that Neo does now.
Yeah.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, like what's the point of the first 3 movies?
Yeah,
they didn't even have to wake up Neo.
Dude, that's so. Oh my god, that's the worst.
Yeah. I think someone I talked to like put it very, very in a very funny way. They said, "Okay, so apparently the Wachowski brothers, their talent was in their testicles."
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, I think he texted me that. Yeah,
like,
dude,
damn.
that's amazing.
Yeah, I was like, "Damn."
To be fair, the second and third ones were you could there was I saw a
Steady
great
decline.
meme. Yeah, I saw a great meme. Have you ever seen that meme with like, the horse where like the ass is like beautiful and then it gets to the head and it's like a stick?
Yeah,
They just did that and they did all the 4 movies.
Yeah.
It was like first one amazing, second one's like it's getting a little. Third one's like what?
Yeah,
this is
didn't even
kind of
try.
fucked. And then
Yeah.
fourth is like all right.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah, so I am gonna try to forget about that movie.
Is it worth watching? Actually, now that you told me that, I don't like. Now I want to get there.
Yeah, I mean, the
I
thing
wanna
is,
get
you're
that
gonna be
point.
just even more disappointed if you went through 2 hours to discover that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you told me, honestly, because yeah,
And the other thing that was shitty was like, okay, so the first movie, they had all this innovative camera work that was like new, exciting, and people were like, holy shit, like they brought like 100 cameras to do that scene. It's fucking nuts. And like they innovated a lot. And
this
this
one
one,
never before seen on screen.
yeah, this one there was nothing really new, and honestly, the CGI was like really shit.
Really?
Yeah, so a lot of it was like, and then there was like good characters that they basically kind of like used for like comic relief. So they brought in the Merovingian, but he was just kind of like a hobo.
What?
Yeah, it was just like they wasted his character. Like
Hollywood's done that too. They'll do like these really cheesy comedy things. Like people like laughing. Let's just like ruin the movie by putting.
But they
in
would
some
like
comedic
completely
relief.
get rid of like the essence of the character. Like
Yeah, he was intimidating.
he was good. Oh man, he was like one of my favorite.
That's one of the best scenes. That fight scene.
Yeah, at the club.
In the club and in the back room with the stairs. That's one of the most nuts fight scenes I've ever seen.
The twins, the
yeah,
twins.
dude, and then it's the car, the highway chase
Yeah.
scene.
Oh yeah.
There's
You know that scene they couldn't. There wasn't a stretch of highway that they could actually do it on, so they recreated the entire stretch.
Are you
They
serious?
built the entire highway.
See, this is one of the things where I was thinking about this the other day. I think the lack of CGI actually made movies better because it was like they actually had to be
It
there.
forced
And
them
it
to
looked
be
real.
yeah.
and it actually looked legitimate.
It made them have to think more creatively about how to create an effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't have done it that way. I've also thought about this with like horror. I mean, if you think about like a horror, like CGI, it's almost not scary because you can see the CGI behind a lot of horror movies these days.
Yeah.
But when it's not CGI, it's actual makeup, and you can feel like as a human, you can see when like that's actually a real thing that's in front of you.
Yeah.
It's way more scary when like you get really good makeup on and you get them to change or like do whatever.
Yeah.
Be chainsawed with that.
On that topic, I'm gonna plug Night House again. If you haven't seen
Night
it.
House?
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
The Night House.
No.
It's like a horror movie 2021. You can buy it for like $3.99 on YouTube or something. But it's really good. It's a horror movie that was like actually done very well.
Really?
Yeah. Like not since I've seen like Hereditary,
Yeah.
which is like my other favorite one.
Huh.
But yeah, I'm gonna plug for that one.
Yeah.
But okay, let's go to good movies that actually killed it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of movies that came out in like this break.
Yeah.
So we
A
can
lot.
talk about Spider-Man, obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
Loved it.
I thought it was just so well done, right? Like
I thought it was great.
They nailed nostalgia. Like,
Yeah.
You couldn't have done it any better.
It was, and like I was like a little bit mixed about, all the Spider-Mans coming together. I was a little bit like, this is a little fan servicey.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it like kind of worked anyway. You
Yeah.
know, like I was like, you know what? I kind of liked it. Like they addressed a lot of things. Like one of my favorites was like I feel like when you saw the three of them together, you were like, oh, I wish one of them would ask this question or one of them would ask this question. And they almost always did it. Like one of the big ones that I couldn't believe they actually addressed was the web shooter thing.
Yeah.
When Toby was like, yeah, I just make mine.
This stuff comes out of me.
Yeah, and they're like, wait, what? Like it's like questions like that. We're like, I can't believe they're actually asking this in a real movie. Like this feels like a fan fiction.
Yeah. Part of it definitely felt like that, but
yeah.
Like when there was first rumors that was going to happen, I was like, how are they going to execute this that makes sense? So like in my mind, I was like, there's no way they can like do that well, and they actually over-delivered on my expectations. So I was like, okay,
no,
I'm bought in.
It was definitely much better than I had pretty high expectations going in. I pretty much met them, which was good.
Yeah, there was a lot of like good like callbacks to certain things that I thought was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But it also made me realize that like based on acting, like Andrew Garfield was by far the best actor.
Dude, it's funny because like most people haven't seen his movies or don't really care about his movies. But I was actually watching them and I am like a forever like the Tobey Maguires are the better Spider-Man movies. I just think they just capture the essence of what Spider-Man is a lot better than the others.
Tobey captures like the nerdy Spider-Man a lot better.
Yeah, he does. And the story, it's like it's the real origin story. Like, yeah, the music is very iconic.
Yeah.
But I will say,
Dafoe.
like, Willem Dafoe. I mean, the villains are way better. Like the villains are very like. I mean, Willem Dafoe is just perfect.
Yeah.
But I will say, hearing Andrew Garfield like when he's like actually like in the air swinging like Spider-Man and he starts talking and chirping at the villains, I'm like, that feels like how Spider-Man's supposed to be, which Tobey didn't really do.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. It was interesting. Like, I actually think Tobey was not the best Spider-Man within the three of them as I watched them. I was like, you know what? Andrew Garfield kind of like hits Spider-Man, like the essence of Spider-Man. Well, Tobey's movies are just better.
I guess the casting for all three is not that
They're
bad.
all pretty
They're
good.
all pretty good. I just think like the material that Andrew Garfield had to work with was so bad.
Yeah, it's not Andrew
Garfield's
Garfield's
fault. It just does him a disservice. And also, I was looking this up. How old do you think Andrew Garfield is? Like, take an accurate, realistic guess.
Late 30s, maybe early 40s.
Yeah, he's 39.
Yeah, I can see that.
But he played Spider-Man, who's a teenager.
Oh,
5 years ago.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
So he played a teenager.
I guess I never thought about that.
I mean, he was like 35. I was shocked too. Yeah, and I was like, he's been in Hollywood for that long.
I guess he has.
Yeah.
I actually saw like the other day. I saw that he was auditioning for. Remember the Chronicles of Narnia?
Yeah.
He was auditioning for that, and they said he wasn't good looking enough, which is pretty funny.
Oh man!
So he's been around for a bit, but that is interesting. I mean, Hollywood's always kind of made like older people, like in high school, but that's like in your 30s, like.
No, he was.
Like
I think he's almost late
mid-30s.
Yeah, mid-30s, playing a teenager.
That's pretty nuts, actually. But I mean, he kills it. Like he's very good.
Yeah.
I think I really enjoyed that they gave him that moment where he like saved.
Yeah.
Hit like that MJ.
Did you watch that?
And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like,
there was this clip on YouTube where they premiered the movie in like the biggest theater in Europe. And then when that happened, like it was just filming the reaction of the crowd when that happened. People were like, "Yeah!"
That's awesome.
It was like a crazy scene. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I wish I had that kind of energy in the theaters."
Oh yeah, dude. There's so much. I mean, I remember when I was when I saw Avengers, like the last one. It's like, dude, the energy is like nuts in theaters. I don't know if we'll ever get energy like that again after this Spider-Man. I don't know. Like, What's like if there are any movies that are really gonna get people hyped?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've actually thought about.
Yeah, like are you that excited about Stage 4 like Marvel?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Not
Like
really.
outside of this Spider-Man movie, I'm not really that invested.
The only Marvel movie that I've enjoyed was Shang-Chi. But even Shang-Chi, the problem was that him as a character wasn't that.
Yeah, it was kind of boring.
He was kind of a boring character. Like the story itself was very interesting. With it, again, when his dad came on the screen, you were like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah.
Like this is. But himself was just he as a character was just kind of boring.
Yeah, I think he suffered from the fact that he just got outshone by Tony Leung.
Yeah, I mean Tony Leung definitely like.
Yeah, he was just fucking
shit
crazy.
And he's a very good actor.
Yeah.
And like every time he was on, like there are some actors that just come on the screen. You're like.
Yeah,
they just have
steal
a
the
presence.
show.
Yeah, they have like a presence.
Yeah.
And I don't know if necessarily that what's his name, Simu
Liu.
I don't know if he necessarily doesn't have that, but the character was not written in a way that like made him have any. He was kind of timid the whole movie, and like even when he got like kind of confident at the end, it wasn't like super convincing.
I also talked about this before, but like it looks like he got less jacked for the movie, and I'm like, why would you get less jacked for a Marvel role?
Maybe he's supposed to be. No, he's not supposed to be that young. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean he has like Instagram posts where he's like fucking yoked, and then in the movie he's like not that big.
Really?
Yeah, like you had one chance to be a superhero, and you're
like not that big.
You didn't take sauce and just like get fucking yoked.
They're all taking steroids, dude.
Yeah,
look at Thor,
except
look at
him.
Chris Hemsworth. That's really funny. But no, I don't. I'm not that like enthusiastic about Marvel Phase
Me neither.
4. I mean,
like,
we'll see.
I'll probably watch the next Doctor Strange movie, but what else is there?
Even that, I'm like, I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's like, it's like they've actually Thor, Love and Thunder. I'm like, maybe that could be good, but of course, what's her name is Thor, and you're like
Natalie Portman.
Yeah, it's like
Thorette.
why the fuck would she be Thor? Like, so you've got to explain that.
It's gonna be like a She-Hulk situation.
What the fuck, She-Hulk? Just make a new Superwoman. Like, why does she need to be a woman Hulk?
I think
are you kidding me?
She-Hulk is actually in the comics though. She-Hulk is actually like pretty powerful. She like has a pretty
it's powerful as in like.
Role.
Oh, so it's actually a unique story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
maybe
Hulk,
they can do it then.
Yeah, there's some story around like the origins of Hulk and stuff, and there's like other things going on.
Interesting. Okay. If it expands the story of like the Hulk, as like the idea of the Hulk, if that expands that narrative.
There's a whole world around Hulk too that they haven't explored. So like,
okay, all right, maybe it could be good then.
Yeah, I think that's essentially what they're getting at for this next stage. I think they're gonna like start to flesh out the other characters. It was riding on Iron Man the whole time. Right?
Yeah.
Now that he's gone, Captain Rogers is like kind of gone too. Like who's next? And they're probably going into like Spider-Man and a couple other of the younger ones. So
yeah.
I mean, we'll see.
So I'll tell you, one of the things that I've thought about is what could be the way something really breaks out now, because it's really complicated to get things to really break out these days.
Yeah.
Is if you had originally Game of Thrones was supposed to end or have movies in it. So like they were supposed to like even like the end, like some of the big battles, like at the end, I think it was like the end of the second season or the Battle of Blackwater, I think it's called. They wanted that originally to be a movie. So you'd have like a season, and then you'd follow it up with like a movie. Would actually be it. And by the way, anime already does this.
Yeah. I was gonna say Dragon Ball Z does that all the time.
Dragon Ball Z does this. Demon Slayer just did it, and it was really, really successful. Anime already does this, and I was thinking about this. I'm like, that's actually a really good strategy if you think about it. If you think about like, what if the Game of Thrones finale was in theaters? It would have not only been good for audiences because you would have given them a venue to see like the end of this this TV series they wanted to see. But also, think of the money you're making out of this. Like, it's actually good for everybody. Like, I would have been, at that time, I would have been very okay with paying for movie theater tickets and buying popcorn to see the end of Game of Thrones in theater. I would have totally done that. I'm sure most people would have.
Yeah.
It would have helped prevent piracy because it would have been in theaters and not on streaming platforms.
Yeah, when the budget of each episode is already like the budget of a movie, why not make it into a movie?
So the reason they didn't do it was because HBO was like, we don't do theatrical movies.
Oh.
And so HBO kind of like stronghold them out of it. But I'm saying for the future, like I'm saying for like future new series,
think about the
It would
fans.
be interesting. I mean, Arcane, I could see that, like, if it becomes popular enough.
Yeah.
There are a lot of TV shows that I think could be, if it continues, like, to have, like, a successful, like, 2 or 3 seasons, and you've built up a fan base, and then you make a movie that's exclusively in theaters, I think that could continue, like, just boiling up, and people just get more people talking and more people interested in it.
Maybe that's an idea that Netflix should do. You know, they have a lot of shows that can follow that pattern.
Totally. I think it depends on, like, obviously it depends on the type of show potentially. But, like, if The Witcher starts, you know, getting more popular and then they say, okay, then maybe the end of season 2 ends on a big cliffhanger and the movie is like, maybe it's like a final battle or something.
Yeah.
To, you know, save whatever in this part of the season and it just ends with like a 2-hour movie.
That'd be
dope.
dope.
Not a bad idea.
That'd be dope.
Honestly, they can make a lot of money, but it also is good for the fans. Like it gives the fans more of a like they're going out with friends to go see this. Maybe if friends want to go see it with their friends, like I'll watch the series to go see it.
It turns it back into an event, which is ultimately what you want.
Yeah, so it's not just the money; it like gives fans a more of a engaging way to engage with the content. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Totally. Do you have any recommendations?
What have I been watching?
Movies or series?
Movies or series? I actually haven't really been watching stuff. It's been kind of a hectic, you know, traveling and stuff.
Yeah, me too. I found like I wasn't
movies.
using my AMC pass as much as I probably should have.
Oh yeah, well, there's not that many movies like that good. You
There's
know,
gonna be a drought for January and February, but
yeah. Oh, did you watch Don't Look Up?
Oh my god. I watched the first 30 minutes, and I couldn't take the rest of it.
Couldn't get through it.
Yeah, like Jonah Hill was ass in that movie.
Jonah Hill was interesting. I don't know if that was him or if that was like the writing itself.
It's just like I feel like a lot outside of Leo, everyone else just kind of phoned it in.
Yeah, a little bit.
And it wasn't subtle at all.
About like what it was trying to be. It was very political on purpose. Yeah.
But, I mean, then that's like propaganda.
Oh, I mean, yeah. To a certain extent, most movies are propaganda. I mean, unfortunately, but that one to your point is like almost too propaganda-ish.
Yeah, it's like,
but they also make fun of everybody.
You need subtlety to make it compelling. You can't just be so obvious with it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was the point. I mean, I think Adam McKay might revert back to you and say, well, like the kind of the point of the movie is that you can't be subtle anymore because the world's going to end because of climate change. You know, so it's like, okay, like I get that. Because
like you can't call that art. Then it's more informational. then like you're kind of towing the line between art and like what's not art. You know, like I don't know. I couldn't stand it because I was like, you're insulting my intelligence here. Like
I tend to agree with you. Like I think it is probably a frustration of Adam McKay and like maybe even Leo of like. People aren't taking climate change seriously enough, and we like, need to kind of beat them over the head with it.
Yeah,
and I kind of get that.
It's a good idea on paper.
Yeah, but like the thing is like I think Adam McKay has made better statements, making it more subtle through like the lens of like something like comedy. Like The Other Guys is one of my favorite fucking movies of all time. I don't think I've ever cried laughing in theaters as much as that one when Samuel Jackson and The Rock say aim for the bushes and they just there's like no fucking bushes there and they just hit the ground and die. Yeah. And it just cuts. They hit the ground and it just cuts right to their funeral. And like Mark Wahlberg's sitting there like there wasn't even an awning. Like I was losing it. But then it's interesting because they talk about like how they were targeting the pension fund and all this stuff, and at the end, they talk about like it's a comedy, but they talk about how like this is kind of what corporate people do. Like they actually do target pension funds to make more money or to cover their losses. Yeah, and they talk about that shit, and it's like it's an interesting way of getting across some like real cultural issues through the lens of something that's funny, like, and then it like happens to like convey an idea.
Yeah, you can convey messages. Just do it in like in a not so subtle way
without insulting our intelligence, basically.
Yeah, without insulting the audience.
Yeah.
But yeah. Other than that, I don't think there was that much. I guess we just have to look forward to.
No,
spring.
I think I'm gonna watch. I think I'm gonna try to watch Euphoria. Okay. Just because people are talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in
starting to talk about it again. And I probably want
Yeah.
to finish Succession too. I'm like halfway through.
Oh, dude, yeah, Succession's good.
Yeah.
I also want to watch. I might give Witcher a shot again.
The
I
first
don't
season?
know. I mean, the second season came out.
Yeah, I know the second season now. So you didn't finish the first season.
I watched like the first 4 or 5 episodes, and I was
Ah.
like, "This is
Yeah.
just
There's a
this is
couple parts of
Netflix
it-
like trying to make Game of Thrones."
yeah, there's a parts of it that I'm like, oh,
have you just watched the first season? What have you
yeah,
watched?
I kind of like forced myself to finish it because a lot of people talked really good stuff about it.
Yeah,
And then it kind of got okay. But when the second season came out, I was like not enthused at all. So,
That's
but
my
I do,
thing.
but I do
Yeah.
want to give it another shot, and everyone says it's pretty good. So,
I've heard it's better. I heard the second season actually does get better.
yeah.
So
I just really like Henry Cavill's character. He does
Yeah.
a really good job with that. So,
yeah, I mean he's good.
all
I
right,
do like Henry
let's
Cavill.
agree to
but-
give it another shot. We'll throw Netflix a bone because
It's
they
a long
totally need it,
weekend, I
right?
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Netflix is coming out with besides The Witcher recently.
Yeah. Don't look up.
Don't look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's end on that terrible of a note.
You're like, wait,
Yeah,
that's
it's
kind of
bleak.
shitty.
Yeah.
Is there anything like really good that I'm trying to think if there's anything like actually really good that I saw?
Recently, I don't know. But I'm taking this class that's forcing me to watch some indie movies, so maybe I'll come with a few more indie suggestions for people. Oh, I saw Pig with Nick Cage.
Oh fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, how would you think? It's
That was-
nuts, right?
Yeah, it's nuts.
It's
I didn't even know
fascinating.
there was such a huge thing around truffle pigs. Like, I just had no idea.
Dude, that was one of the weirdest movies. I don't like. It was good. It wasn't like amazing, but like it was just so
It's
odd.
so strange. Yeah.
It's so odd.
I mean, like, all hail the master for
Dude.
like agreeing to do something
Unreal.
like that. Yeah.
Unreal.
I mean, I paid $2.99 on YouTube to watch that.
Did
shit.
you?
Yeah.
I went to theaters for that shit.
Really?
Oh, I went like opening weekend. I saw the trailer. I'm like, I gotta see what this is. Like, this is gonna be so ridiculous. And I definitely came
Oh,
out with
man.
mixed feelings. Like, I wasn't like all. I mean, the movie itself was like. I mean, Nicolas Cage, obviously, all hail. But the movie itself was like that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It
It's
ended
quirky.
weird.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can't wait
guess
for
people should
his-
watch it.
yeah, I think you should watch it. I think it's interesting, and then
Yeah.
we can also look forward to the immense weight of unbearable talent that he's
Oh,
in.
yeah.
That looks pretty funny. We'll see.
The most anticipated movie of 2022.
I'm kind of amped. It's like
Yeah.
a satirical version of Nicolas Cage. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
should be
this
great.
is Nicolas Cage being meta. Like I'm sold.
Yeah. It's the right
Absolutely
time.
sold. Yeah.
All right. We'll pick it up next week. This is Entertainment Business Review. We're out.
That's right. Peace.